Haircut, yeah.
Oh, it's like we could put a bun up for you. That's fine.
You know what's nice is that she, with COVID, because they closed salons.
Oh yeah.
They come to the house, so I don't even have to go anywhere.
You can stay in your pajamas and just get coiffed.
It's awesome. Welcome to the 805 Life podcast, where we pull back the curtain on all myths and truths here in the real estate in the 805 and beyond. I'm your host, Sergio Gonzalez with SG Associates, and along with my lovely co-host, Courtney Allen.
Hello, hello.
All
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So what's shaking?
What is shaking? That's good lingo.
Yeah.
That's very good lingo. Today we are going to talk about the anxiety of downsizing.
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 Yes. Yeah. So, I think there is a lot of anxiety around downsizing when I'm speaking with a lot of clients, because they've lived, typically I would say on average the time spent in their home is somewhere between 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. It was probably their third move into their, the existing house, where they raised their kids. They've gone through high school. They went through, through college.
That was me.
Or getting ready to go to college.
Yeah, that happened to me.
And I would say, at least in the neighborhoods that I'm serving, right? So North Ranch, Lake Sherwood, the houses are, 6, 7, 8, 9,000 square feet. And the thought of downsizing is like, it's overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, I remember when my parents they decided, or they asked me first, like, how did I feel about if they moved to a smaller house? I was like, no, you can't do this. Like, this is my house. I lived here. This is my territory. Even though I'm not here, you can't do that. I think I had more anxiety than they did about it, but at the end of the day, it was such a better idea for them, because they're the two of them and our dog. Like, what else is going to happen? Yeah,
I think the kids often struggle because they've either already have moved out or they're in college and they come home. Right?
Yes, exactly it.
And now you're going to come not home into some new place.
Yeah.
I do think that is a common reaction that their kids do have, is like, hey, how are the kids gonna feel? They're gonna be so upset because their room is left exactly how they left it, right? When they come home, they're like, oh my God, I'm home, I feel like home. And so I do think that is just one of the struggles that a lot of people have when their kids have just moved right out of the house and wanting to think about, like, okay, well, the kids are out. Now we have 3, 4 empty rooms.
Yeah, right? Which was great for my parents, I thought, because sometimes my dad just needs to get away, because, my mom sometimes she needs her space. It was great. But now the house that we have now, it's beautiful. It's smaller. It's great. But
I think they call it the tiny house,
they do. Our Wi-Fi is called that as well.
The Wi-Fi is called tiny house.
The tiny house. We have the tiny house, and I think the tiny house too.
The tiny house.
And yes, it is smaller, but it's absolutely beautiful. But at the same time, I keep saying, I kind of wish that they didn't move, because I came back from New York for COVID.
Right.
I came back to the guest room, which is
not
now not my room. And if we were back at the older house, which we're down the street from, I'm like, oh, like, it would have been better for COVID. But at the same time, well,
at least they stayed within the same neighborhood.
For sure. I can literally just walk to their house.
Right. You can go back and like, oh, that used to be my room and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say that's one issue. And then the second issue is, when you live in this 6,000 square foot, 7,000 square foot house, like, but what am I going to do with my stuff?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, like, so much stuff. And I've had some clients are like, well, my dining table's not going to fit in this house, right? Because I'm showing them like what potentially downsizing looks like, right? And it's usually about half the size, right? Like,
yes.
So they're like, well, my couch isn't going to fit. My dining room, like, you're downsizing. Like,
you have to downsize everything.
Everything, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to buy a new couch. You're going to buy a new dining table that is going to now fit for you know, the new house and what does that look like, right? So that's, you know, there's a mind shift that has to take place.
Yeah.
Like, not only am I downsizing the actual house, but you're going to be downsizing literally everything, your wardrobe, your furniture, your kitchen, your outdoor living furniture, like everything's going to get downsized. So, you know, I always tell the clients, like, look, if you haven't touched it in a year or more, like, get rid of it. Like, you haven't used it, you haven't touched it. Call your gardener or your housekeeper or family members that, you know, would love to have this stuff. They'll come pick it up for you. Like, you don't even have to worry about taking it to them. They'll gladly just take it. So
yeah. Do you think people think about that when they want, like, as soon as they think, oh, we need to downsize, do you think they think about any of that? No.
They do think about, like, well, what are we gonna do with all our stuff?
Right.
Because it's overwhelming and it's like on them, right? It's on them. So you have a couple of options. One is you can have an estate sale, right? There's plenty of estate sale companies that will come and they'll say, okay, what are the things you don't want? And then they'll give you a guesstimate on, hey, we think we could sell this for this and this and this. So they go around tagging all of the stuff that is going to go up for sale. And then they do a marketing campaign, right? They'll send emails to, you know, whoever's in their database. There's some serial estate sale shoppers, right? Like, they live and breathe for estate sales, and especially in high-end areas, right? I mean, there's some nice stuff, right? Like, you got some nice stuff that sometimes people are just like, yeah, you know, I'm done with that, right? Like, I don't need it anymore. So those people that are looking for estate sales, they're getting to come up on stuff that literally probably costs thousands and thousands of dollars brand new. They're getting, you know, for now hundreds. So I think that's a good bargain for them, and it makes it easy, and it takes off a lot of that pressure for the homeowner to not have to take on so much, right? It's just, and it's done like in a weekend. So they tag everything, they mark everything, and then they send it out as a syndication, and then it's on like Saturday and Sunday, and you just have people just come and just start taking stuff, buying stuff, and then you're left with whatever, and then you can decide what you want to do at that point, you know. And oftentimes that's when you're like, hey, you know, housekeeper, gardener, friends, family, post it on Facebook, like, come get it.
Facebook Market is fantastic. Yep. That'd give me so much anxiety, just like all of my things just leaving me.
Yeah, totally. So it's it makes it a little easier.
Have you ever had to, quote unquote, hold somebody's hand during a time like that they are downsizing, like a client that you're using? Did they really need emotional support?
I'm usually not there for that emotional support.
Valid. You never know.
You know, I mean, sometimes, yes, you do feel like therapists, right? A lot of times.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it's really something that they have to grasp, you know, with, sometimes they're just not ready, right? Like, I am dealing with a client, her husband passed away maybe about a year ago, right? Living in this big house right now. I think it's a little over 4,000 square feet, one person, right? Huge house. It's on an acre. So it's a lot to maintain, a lot to take on, right? And you're grieving at the same time. Right. You know, she's still just...
It's a lot.
She's not quite ready, right? So there's, you know, there's nothing I'm going to do that I could show her the best property for her, right? That she's downsizing for. And I've showed her a couple of properties just to kind of get a sense of what that would look like.
What it could be.
Right? Yeah. But again, she's like, well, my table's not going to fit. And I have a lot of antique furniture that I'm not ready to part with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of have to have that coming to Jesus conversation.
Right.
With like, okay, but if we're downsizing, everything is being downsized. And so it's that fine line of like, is she ready to even have that conversation? Right? Like, that's more of where I think I have that balance of like, okay, she's not ready to have that conversation yet. She's still, my husband just passed. I'm still, having to adjust,
Right.
living on my own,
Right.
taking care of myself, which I'm sure she took care of herself, obviously, but just being alone, right? Like
Yeah.
surviving alone, being alone, and being in this house, right? And she's not ready to part with it, right? So you kind of just meet clients where they're at, and you do a lot of listening to understand and not listening to respond. And you come across, in a little bit more empathetic way that just, lets them know, hey, when you are ready, I'm here, and we can go in a direction that, you're ready to go in.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to be a therapist for everybody that you want to be there for.
No, and sometimes you are, because you get especially when you're in the middle of a transaction.
Yeah.
And, deadlines are coming up, and, you feel sometimes that you paid a high price, and then you're like, okay, well, I want this fixed and I want that fixed. And if they don't fix it, I want to cancel. And it's like, hold on, let's put this into perspective here. Okay. The screen door is ripped. The plug in the wall just needs to be replaced. Like they're $5, $10, $25 Home Depot items. Do we really want to, flex the muscle over these types of things, right? I always try to bring them into more, is it a safety, health hazard, fire type of issue?
Right.
I don't think anybody wants to pass along their home for that is going to be a potential danger to the next family.
Right.
Right. Like, I think that's where the main focus or I try to bring it to. But hey, the faucet is loose,
Little things.
It's okay. Right. Like you're buying a, 30-year-old home. Like it's not new. Right. Like what are you expecting? So I think you got to like bring people back into reality, or, get it back into perspective and bring down that emotional, that heightened emotion and bring it down. Right. And I've had a lot of clients say, oh, thank you for talking me off the ledge. Thank you for,
it was true.
Calming me down, because it definitely you get, it's an emotional roller coaster for sure.
And I feel like emotions are even higher now during COVID times. Like on top of COVID, and like you're wanting to downsize or move. Like that's a whole other situation.
Yeah, some people are, like, hey, I don't want a ton of people walking in my house right now.
Right.
So you got to deal with that. Right. Well, people need to come to your house to buy your house. Right. Like they need to see it. Right. They're not going to just pay you, $3 million and not see your house or, come see the house. Right. And right now we're doing like FaceTimes. I'm working with a client. He's in Miami. He's moving out this way. And I've shown him, 3 or 4 properties via FaceTime. Yeah. We're writing an offer, and then he'll come and fly, to come look at the property. But and I think sellers also had to, and listing agents had to adjust to that, because they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I want to accept your offer when they haven't even been to the property, right? Or I don't know if I want to take the time out of my day to go let you in to do a FaceTime showing.
FaceTime isn't the same, but you got to do what you got to do.
Right, but that's the new norm now. Right. So now when I call a listing agent and say, hey, I got to do a FaceTime showing for my client, they're like, oh yeah, of course, come this time, that time, whatever. Right. So I think everyone's kind of adjusted accordingly, for sure.
Interesting. You'd be a good therapist for real estate.
Yeah, I think so far. I've had some real tough clients, and you don't take it personally. I think more than anything, I think you have to be the calm in the storm. You have to, I think of myself as the captain of the ship, right? Like all these little examples, the captain of the ship in the storm, and you're going to hit some headwinds, right? And you have to be able to communicate to people in a way that instills security, certainty, trust, and that this is not new.
Yeah.
Right? You've seen these before. You've been here before, and you know exactly what to do. And I got this. Right? It's the same thing when you have the captain on the airplane, right? It's like, hey, we're gonna come into some turbulence, and don't worry, this is normal. So you should expect it,
right?
And we'll be through it in about 10-15 minutes or whatever the case may be, right? So I think it's like letting people know what's coming, right? Setting the right expectations, and letting them know that what's going to happen is normal. It's part of the process, right? So because I think that's where conflict is going to arise when expectations are not met, right, or set, and I think that's where the breakdown.
Gotta be like flat out from the beginning. Just gotta tell what's gonna happen.
Yeah, just like when you go to a doctor and you're gonna have surgery, he's gonna say, okay, here's what we're gonna do.
Don't panic, but
yeah, here's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And afterwards, here or even during the surgery, here's what we may come across. I don't know, but you should know that I've done 1,000 of these, and there's nothing yet that we haven't seen or been able to handle. So you're in good hands, right? And they're like, oh, okay, fine. And then after the surgery, here's some of the things that you may experience, right? You may experience a little swelling, you may experience a little bleeding or whatever. It's normal. Just change the bandage or whatever the case may be. And you're like, okay. You're not freaking out when you see a little,
that would be me. Yeah, literally me.
A little blood coming out. So it's the same thing with the sellers, right? Hey, we're going to experience some showings. They may or may not last very long. Some showings may be an hour. Some showings may be 5 minutes. Some showings may cancel.
Right.
Right? They might drive by and say, you know what? Never mind. Don't be surprised. Don't take it personally. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
And so you set the expectations, because early on, I didn't set some of those expectations, right? And I say, hey, we have a showing, and they'd go crazy, of course, getting the house ready, making it show ready. And, everybody wants to put on their best first, impression.
Right.
And the buyer walks in, probably takes a few steps through the door, takes a look around and says, you know what, this is not for us.
Yeah.
And then they turn around. And the sellers would lose their mind, right? Like, do you know how long I just spent getting this house ready? Yeah. I had to get the kids out. I had to make sure the house cleaner came. I had to, just rearrange my day.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a nightmare for people. So for that buyer to come in and be like, type of deal. So I have to now set the expectations, like, okay, here's how we manage showings. Here's how we, try to pre-qualify the buyer based on what they're looking for. Yeah. And weed out as many people as we can that aren't necessarily going to be a good fit. So if the property has steps and stairs and they're like, well, we're looking for a single story. And I'm like, well, this is a single story, but it's got a couple of step downs here and there. So are you looking for a true single story with no steps? Or are you going to be okay with a few steps, in the area?
Right. At the end of the day, we got this. We got this. Like this podcast, we got this.
Yeah, exactly. So I always like to tell people that you got to be the calm in the storm.
Gotta be the calm in the storm. I love that.
Yeah. So I think we can call that a wrap on that one, right?
Yes.
We'll leave it there. So thank you for joining us on this episode of the 805 Live podcast. I'm Sergio Gonzalez, SG Associates. This is Courtney Allen, my co-host. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, ring that bell, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
See ya.